Hey folks, welcome to the Confluence Podcast, sponsored by Confluence Outfitters. I am one of your hosts, Steve Scow, co-host Luke Geraty, fly fishing and guide extraordinaire out of the Red Bluff area.
Wow,
we are going to.
Those are interesting words. You just.
Yeah, dude.
Do I owe you money?
I mean, do you have any?
No, I'm a guide.
Yeah, that's true. Yeah. So today we're going to talk about dry fly fishing. We're going to talk about how to rig the fly, how to present the flies you should use. That can get kind of interesting. There's a couple different rabbit holes we could potentially go down.
Yeah, I guess the goal again is to not be offensive in what we say. That's
yeah. I mean, the good thing is I'm rocking a fever right now, so the energy I have to make fun of you has waned since
lower.
Yesterday.
This is good. I like this. This is good for me. What's your fever at right now?
I just checked it. I'm right at 101. I had to cancel my trip today. We're going to try for tomorrow, providing I'm still not sick.
Yeah, man, that stinks. That's about how hot it is where I live right now, though.
Is it really?
Dude, it's getting there. It's going to be 105 on Friday. But on Friday, I'm going fishing for stripers, so that will be fun.
That's going to be a blast. You're going down to the Delta?
No, I'm going to do it right around here. They're everywhere. I've been actually doing a lot of my trips lately. I've been doing, I guess, a lot of indicator fishing, obviously, but kind of like designing the day where we're going to spend some significant time throwing dry flies. There's a couple spots that I have kind of been curating, and then also throwing for stripers. And the other day, we had a 20-pound striper easily just try to crush our fly, my client. So that was pretty cool. We didn't get it though, so that was a bummer. But yeah, so dry flies.
Yeah, 'tis the season, right?
I was in England a week and a half ago. And,
yeah, how was did you? But you didn't do any chalk stream dry fly fishing.
I did not. No, I've gone there a lot, and I've never fished. When I go there, I mostly am there to go to England and France and drink wine, eat cheese, eat awesome food, hang out with friends. So, but dry fly fishing was kind of curated there quite a bit.
It was. Yeah. So up here we're in the midst of the salmon fly hatch.
Yeah, I've been seeing your Instagram posts.
Yeah,
at Steve Scow Fly Fishing Instagram.
Y'all should check it out. I appreciate the plug.
Yeah. So what have you been doing? You've been throwing big old chubby Chernobyls and crazy things like that?
Yeah, lots of chubbies. Purple chub is my favorite. Excuse me. Ended up though this last week going to a smaller golden stone type chubby. And that was kind of the ticket. We were having a slow day. I threw that on and we started hammering fish. So that was
cool.
There's some smaller golden stones flying around.
How small? Are we talking like the those really tiny yellow sallies or the 2-inchers?
No, we're talking like 2 inches. We're talking real flies.
Big ones.
Yeah. So it's been a blast, man. We've had a lot of success this year. A few steelhead that we've hooked up with. We just really couldn't seal the deal. I've lost 4 steelhead this season so far.
On dry flies.
Yeah, hitting the chubbies.
Yeah, sweet.
And yesterday, dude, we lost a toad of a steelhead. Like, it was big, dude. And
that's crazy.
Yeah,
you're throwing dry flies for steelhead in June.
Yeah, dude, it's unique. But the Corps of Engineers released a load of water, so because our reservoirs are full, we got hit with that system right before I left for Belize and you left for England.
Yeah.
And so now the reservoirs are full and they're kicking out a bunch of water. So fish are moving up. I've heard of a couple other guides actually getting some jack salmon on dries. So that's
wow.
It's been a unique year for sure.
Yeah. Well, I mean, I think, for our listeners, talking about, dry fly fishing, maybe we could start with rigging. So we talked about, maybe today talking about rigging, talking about presentation, which would probably include like types of casts, talk about flies, and then, maybe we can close this out by talking about a little bit of our latest experiences. But yeah, so tell me your rigging. How do you rig your dry fly setups? You run in single fly, double fly, triple fly. You got 18 flies up in Oregon. I don't know. What are you guys doing up there?
So I'm typically just running a single dry fly.
Okay.
We have, we have gone to droppers, a dry dropper a few times. When it got slow, we went to that yesterday for a bit. And we were getting some fish on that nymph. I was just using a small green or red copper john style fly as the dropper. But for the most part, I'm running a single fly, a big dry fly, usually a chubby, so it's got that white poly yarn on there, so we can see it happen. And I'm running for my steelhead trips, my nymphing trips, I build my own leaders. But for dry fly fishing, I'm just using the store bought 9-foot tapered leaders in 3X, and I'm running 2 feet of 3 or 4X off of that. Now that we're getting later into the year, I'm going to go down to 4X because those fish they've all been caught quite a bit, so they're starting to get a little bit more sensitive. So dropping that down a little bit to a 4X, I'd like to think it helps. I don't know that it really does help, but we'll do that, and that's about the lightest I'll go.
So you're running generally from butt section or your tip of your fly line from there to your chubby is about 9 feet.
It's actually about 11 feet when I start, because I'll add that tippet to it, and then. But the cool thing about these big stoneflies, like the salmon fly, there's no delicate presentation needed, right? Actually, the worse you can make the presentation, often
slap it, slap it on the water.
That's what gets the fish's attention. So that's fun. And there'll be some smaller hatches that I'll fish throughout the summer, and that'll be like PMDs or drakes or something like that. And that's when we're really gonna work on the finesse of that presentation, have that fly hit the water softly, because we just want to come up and sip that. If you slap it down, you're going to spook them.
Okay. So you're saying, so most of the time when you're doing your dry fly fishing up there, you got a big old chubby Chernobyl. And then sometimes you'll throw on a dropper, but not always.
Not always. It's going to depend on how slow the fishing day is. Like if we start getting a lot of rain, and it happened earlier this week, we got dumped on, we threw a dropper on, and it was 18 to 24 inches beneath the dry. And, that we had quite a bit of success with that. But as soon as the rain stopped and we started seeing fish rise again to the flies, we cut the dropper off, and we're kind of living and dying by the dry fly.
Okay. So tell me why do you only put a dropper on if it's raining? What's the thinking there?
So I put it on when it was raining because we stopped getting the rises to the dry fly. So 80% of what the fish eat, it's all subsurface. So throw something on we know they're going to eat. They're still eating in the river when it's raining. And we just needed to get something down to where they were at in their feeding zone. Okay.
So why don't you keep a dropper on when it's sunny? Is it because no one cares about catching them on a nymph?
Pretty much. I mean, this salmon fly hatch season, a lot of folks, because we don't have a lot of dry fly fishing on the Rogue. So a lot of folks, they want the dry fly experience. It's a super visual take. People love it. It's a lot of fun. So they would rather catch less fish and have the opportunity to get them on the dry fly.
Oh, okay.
From what I'm experiencing.
Yeah, that's interesting. Yeah, because it's funny how there's a couple spots on one of our rivers that it's pretty much a guarantee you can dry fly there. But it is kind of funny that if you don't take your dropper off, they're just going to eat that nymph. But if you take the dropper off, you can get them on the dries. So it's kind of like cut that dropper off right here. We'll do that after we've made about 25 casts or so.
Yeah, and I even had one guy last week. I went to put the dropper on, and he asked me not to. He was like, "I'd rather just throw it dry all day. I don't want to catch him on a nymph." And I was like, it's your day, buddy. So
did he have a British accent?
No, we actually hammered quite a few fish that day with him too. So that was awesome.
Yeah, it is interesting how dry fly fishing can be tough sometimes, but sometimes it can, if you just work it, you'll catch fish too. So you actually will have 11-foot leader from fly line to your chubby to your dry fly.
Yep. Yeah, I'll start out with that, and then as I switch out flies throughout the day, I'm cutting that back, but it saves money on the leaders. Those are not cheap. So
yeah.
What's
is your common guest client able to make a cast on, because the longer your leader goes, it seems like you have to slow your cast down a little bit.
Yeah. And we talk about that, but 90% of them are able to cast that.
Cool.
And those that struggle with it, we just, it's a great learning opportunity. So we work on that casting stroke, lengthening it out, slowing it down, and really work on getting that fly to turn over. So they leave the day having caught some fish, better casters, and have done something that they hadn't done a lot, if ever.
That's awesome. Yeah. So that's your chubby setup. What about if you're throwing a, elk hair caddis or some type of a Cahill tiny size 18?
I mean, it's going to be the same. A lot of times I'll lengthen that leader out quite a bit, just
Okay.
because of that. You need that delicate presentation, and I'll drop it down to a 5X. I don't like going any smaller than 5X tippet or leaders on this river because it's every once in a while you do get freight trained by a steelhead on the dry.
Yeah.
So I like to have at least something there where I have a chance. 5X, you really never have a chance, but sometimes if you play it right, you can make it happen.
Oh, that's cool. Okay. So yeah, so you're just a single dry fly on that again, small,
Yep.
tiny.
Yep.
All right. So you're rigging. So what are you doing for? I know we last episode we talked a little bit about floatant. The Flyagra is
Flyagra is
pretty
all I'm
hard.
using now.
Pretty hard to beat. Yeah, I've got multiple bottles of them everywhere. It's crazy.
Yeah.
So what do so like when you first start? So walk us through like, okay, so you're rigging you got your fly line there. You tie on your leader. You're using one of those single tapered 9-foot dry fly leaders, and then you're adding on 3 to 5 feet of tippet. You tie on your fly. What do you do there?
After we tie on the fly, I dip it in the Flyagra, shake off the excess and let it sit for a couple minutes.
Mm-hmm.
And where I'm putting in right now at the hatchery, we've got about 1,200 feet where we're not allowed to fish from a boat.
Okay.
So that gives us plenty of time to get down there, talk about the day, and then what to be expected. Allows that Flyagra to kind of cure on there, if you will, and then start banging the banks.
Sweet. You ever dip, do it in the Flyagra and then dip it in the dry shake stuff?
No, I'll do the dry shake after that fly starts drowning.
Mm-hmm.
We'll do that, and clients I put a bottle of shake at each casting station, and then I have like 14 of them where I'm at, and then I see it drowning, and just have them shake it out, and gets that fly riding high again, and we can start catching fish again.
Oh, that's cool. Okay, all right. So that's your dry fly rig.
That's my dry fly rig. We like I said, we don't have a lot of it up here on the Rogue, and that's where I'm fishing most of my time. So, yeah, man, it's dry flies for about a month, and then every once in a while you get into a small PMD or drake hatch, and then beyond that, other dry flies is usually on a spay rod skating them. It's really about it.
Cool. Yeah, that's cool. Cool. Yeah, sweet. Yeah, we do. I mean, a lot of it for me, I guess, depends on what river I'm on. Lower Sac. I don't think I go much longer than a 10-foot leader ever, just because I'm lazy. Maybe I don't know, but I do. I just tend to do my own. I just tie them up or whatever. But yeah, I think common like 9 to 11 feet maybe. But I really like doing the if I'm fishing clients, I tend to so our rivers, we don't have a lot of sipping action generally. Similar to you, it's not a dry fly fishery per se. So when we get to do it, it's like, oh, this is super awesome. Let's do it. So if there's a hatch going on and there's fish feeding, we can target them. But, a lot of times it's kind of like, just certain spots where you kind of know where they will eat dries. But I'll go like, first time I'll cut, I don't use a chubby, cause our fish are less likely to eat that and more likely to eat the size 18 or size 16 elk hair caddis or Mercer missing link, PMD type of thing.
Mm-hmm.
And then we'll try to use those. And then if we don't raise anything up on them, then we'll throw on a chubby and I'll do a dropper. And every once in a while they'll eat the chubby, but it's almost like it's an accident. Like, ooh, what was that? So, but yeah, but if I'm on the upper Sac though, that's a little bit different. A lot of times it's, a little bit more, or the McLeod, a little bit more delicate presentation, longer leaders, tiny flies, unless we're doing the same thing, salmon hatch or whatever too. But I've actually been doing a fair amount of Euro, just like using my Euro nymph rod or having clients use my Euro stuff, and you can dry fly with that too, which is pretty hilarious because casting that is,
something else.
Oh yeah, it's great. So
what size rods are you using typically on your dry fly?
Yeah, probably a 5-weight. I think most of the time using a 5-weight. Yeah, I mean, I'll actually target this year. I got to do a lot of dry fly. I had a lot of clients, I should say, do a fair amount of dry fly fishing for steelhead on the Trinity. We had just really great hatches of blue wing olives, throughout most days. So that was great. I mean, I had a number of clients get, 24 plus inch fish on dry flies. So that was,
Nice.
pretty epic. Yeah. But always on. So my go-to dry fly is a Mercer missing link. I think in the purple, the dark and the purple, great. They have a, Mercer ties a whole bunch. Well, I'm sure it's probably not even Mercer tying them anymore, but there's a lot of different colors. But that dry fly for me is hard to beat. It rides high. It's got a really great profile. I think it looks caddisy, mayfly-ish. It does enough of all those things. So yeah. So yeah, it just kind of depends on what river, but yeah, generally using a 5-weight. So even a 5-weight on the Trinity, catching 24 plus inch fish, you just got to, play them. But generally for me, it's going to be with clients that kind of know what they're doing. They can cast, and get a decent drift and things too. But the nice thing about a lot of our rivers is there's just not a lot of dry fly fishermen. So the fish don't get a lot of dry fly, dry fly anglers. So it seems like they're less spooky. It's not like Montana where, you can go and spend a whole day just dry fly fishing all the time.
Yeah. So you said you build your leaders for dry fly fishing as well?
Yeah, most of the time. Yeah. I don't, like I'll do, a longer, like a section of 2X or 3X and then, taper that down to 5X is what I'm going to be, where my flies are about the same. And I've gone back and forth using mono and fluorocarbon because the big debate amongst dry fly fishermen is which one should you use because fluorocarbon sinks a little bit and mono doesn't. I prefer fluorocarbon. I actually kind of like that it sinks just a little bit. It seems to not have that, if you're using a mono, you can sometimes see your line, floating high. I kind of like the fact that the fluorocarbon sinks just below the surface a little bit, but I'm also not using size 22 dry flies like I'm living in Colorado or something like that too. So, because I have a feeling those things would probably sink, but yeah, so that's my common rigging stuff.
Okay. So what about the presentation of the fly? Like how do you, you get a client that's new? How do you explain presenting the dry fly?
Well, I think the reach cast is gold mine. So, when you're making your cast and you just, I just demonstrate it a couple times. The problem is when you're demonstrating on certain spots and you get a grab right away, it's like, that's like no win. It's the worst. It's like, oh, what do I do now? Well, it's my fish, so I'm going to fight it. But yeah, no, not really. But, doing the reach cast, really reaching that arm, up above. So finishing your cast, in the sense where your arm's way above, so you get a good, amount of line above the fly. That's pretty key. Unless you've got people that know how to dry fly fish, but I think reality is that most people probably don't know how because they just don't do a lot of it. So I think I'm doing a similar thing to you, where I'm going to pull over and really try to help them become better. A lot of times, like casting, if you're casting upriver, you're going to get a pretty good drift. Casting and drifting downriver is going to require pretty good stack mending, and that's hard for a lot of people, unfortunately.
Yeah, it is. I've had with my newer anglers this season specifically, I've had a lot of them dumping their cast. Just the fly, the leader, and the fly line all wad up in the same thing. So we've really worked on stopping that rod tip high on that back and forward cast, and really going into that tip path being straight, and then stopping that up high to get that fly that line to shoot out, turn that fly way out and come down straight. So that's been it's been challenging for a number of my clients this season, specifically my novices. So working on that, we've done a lot of, just like you said, where we'll pull over, drop the anchor, and we spend 30 minutes just working on casts. And the cool part is sometimes we get a fish on that, but yeah, I think I'd rather put that time into making them better casters than just having them dump it out there and then just have them strip in.
Yeah. I think, don't you feel like it's interesting because obviously fly matters, your leader, all that matters. But with dry fly fishing, presentation is generally, king. I know every once in a while, you'll have, some dumb fish, grab a swinging,
Oh yeah. No, those are fun,
it's
awesome.
the best. It's like, yes, I like dumb fish. I'm all about the dumbness. but it is by and large, if you're targeting a rising fish or an area where fish are actively feeding, I mean, the drag thing is going to be a problem, if you can't get a good drift. So I do think that's a great thing, is to pull over and help people kind of dial in that cast, and also too, the different approaches. I mean, the nice thing about it, when we're in a boat, and I think too, when you're wading, I mean, you can move things around to where you can get a better angle, so if you're casting upriver to get a longer drift, a lot of times that's a little bit more helpful rather than your standard just cast across the stream and, you have a 1 foot drift, So, I mean, because everybody's probably seen those videos if they're on YouTube, watching these fish sipping bugs, and they're watching them come down from like 100 feet, Yeah. So, so presentation, I think, is probably, I don't know. What do you think? Presentation is more important than fly?
I'm going to agree with the presentation part of it. Just because, I mean, there's so many flies that simulate so many bugs. I mean, that's what you tell folks. You teach them to look under a rock or see what's coming off the water and find the thing that matches it the closest, and then cast it. And if you do it right, you present it right, good chance you're going to get a hookup.
Yeah.
So it's that presentation, and it's specifically that drag-free drift. It's the dead drift that is hard, and it's harder to do with the delicate, smaller flies. It's harder to do with smaller leaders, in my experience.
Yeah.
So, really working that and teaching the men's on the water, because we like up here, especially if I'm running a dry dropper, we don't cast as much. Whereas if I'm running just a single fly, 5 to 7 seconds, I want them picking up and laying back down, because we need that disturbance on the water. But running that nymph, teaching that mend is, whether it's upstream or downstream, it's crucial to getting that drift that we need in order to get an eat.
Yeah. Let's talk about that mending a little bit, because I think that, the common, right, every person who's ever gone out with a guide is like, oh man, all guides do is say mend. It's true. It's kind of true.
Mend that.
Yeah. I should just record it and then just push play, and then I would have like it while I'm rolling my boat.
The easy button, the mend button.
Yeah.
Like mend it.
Mend. Yeah. But like, it's interesting because I've, the common, my observation is that most people who fish from the shore a lot, they're used to mending up. Like that's just their standard. They always mend up. And a lot of time they do this like side mend thing where they just kind of flick their wrist, and it ends up dragging the flies to them. It does not accomplish the purpose. So really understanding like what the purpose of the mend is really important. I think, like the whole goal is to get that fly, or if you're using an indicator, to float with no drag in one, seamless drift. So mending downriver, actually a lot of times we'll do that, too, depending on your currents, So so how do you do that? Like, when do you walk people through like the purpose of mending, or you just yell at them all day and say mend?
No, I walk them through it. Because
you yelled at me a lot when I was fishing with you. You yelled at me the whole time.
But you're kind of, you're a senior guide, so you're out there testing me. I figured I'd just yell.
Okay.
But I'm a big why guy. You explain the why behind things, and people, they're more apt to do it when they understand it. So
good.
We explain it to them, and I get out there, and the first 30 minutes to an hour of any trip is just feeling out the client, then filling you out, and then figuring out where they're at. So, and then you find out a lot of what they do and don't know. And a lot of times, like you said, the mend is something that a lot of folks they know they're supposed to do it, but they don't know why. And they don't know.
Yeah.
They don't know that you can do it too much, or you can do it not enough, and finding that line.
Yeah. That's good.
There is that. And I'm a big fan of, if you have the control, do that big C shape motion in order to get that line up there to get the drag. If you can do it, without pulling the fly out of the water, I mean, that's the goal. But a lot of the time it's about explaining, and it's real great when you can see it happening and you can explain it. Be like, okay, now look at your fly. You see those riffles coming off that. We're dragging. Fish aren't going to eat that. In this case, because of the current, we have to do a downstream mend. And that's going to get us that dead drift. And there's often times where you got to do a downstream mend, and then 10 feet later you're doing an upstream mend, just because the way the eddy's doing it, or
yeah. That's good. Yeah, also too, I think for anybody listening, another aspect of mending, so you're talking about getting the C or, the idea of not moving your dry fly or your indicator while you mend. And one way to do that is one continuous, movement of separating fly line from water, right?
Yep.
Like, so that way you don't have this big long drag. But I think people forget that in addition to the 2 feet of arm ish you have, you got this rod. And it's like, I always explain to people, I'm like, you have, plus you're, if you're in a boat, you're 6-ish feet above the water too. So, or 5 to 6, it's like you have quite a bit of a distance right there you can lift up. So if you lift your rod up over your arm, with your arm, you can get quite a bit of a ability to move that line up over the current, over the water, and place it. Like I think that sometimes people are so used to the wrist
flick
thing.
Yeah.
Yeah. And it's like, man, I've had to, pull over and explain to people. I'm like, hey, listen, when it's almost like in the boat, you're fishing the opposite. That's what I often say. It's like, it's the opposite of what you do when you're walk wading, because when you're walk wading, for instance, you got your rod tip really high, but most of the time in the boat, you have your rod tip down, a lot of time. Yeah. Or you're going back and forth from mending down to, it's like this, and I know that's like the thing that a lot of clients are like, oh my gosh, like make up your mind.
Yep.
I'm like, mend up, now down. What are you doing?
Yeah, the men game is that'll make or break a day. The other day I had clients that couldn't cast well, so we're closer to the bank than I really wanted to be. So close, in fact, that coming around trees and brush, I actually had to row out around them.
Mm-hmm.
So, but that's the only, they could, 20 feet was all they had.
Yeah.
And trying to mend 20 feet of fly line with the new angler, while the guide is trying to get the boat around trees and branches and brush, it makes for a difficult day. So, getting that mending down early and making sure they understand why, it helps out. It's going to make for a more fish caught type day.
Gotcha. So presentation wise, there's a couple things. I remember when you were going to your trip down to Belize, a couple of weeks ago, you were going out practicing your casting a lot, right? So, I think we could say that it is. In fact, when I was growing up, I was just remembering this the other day. So when I grew up as a kid, I grew up in Alaska, and I had a fly rod in my hands pretty quickly, and we were flipping for red salmon. So, not really casting. I mean, it was literally just a flick, and bump, 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 bump. So when I learned how to cast, it was kind of like, I just kind of did it myself, and it was a disaster, at first, this line everywhere. And, when I was a kid, I finally had somebody kind of show me how to actually cast, the 10 o'clock, 2 o'clock, the whole thing. But I used to do it a lot. Like I'd go outside and I would, this is, don't make fun of me,
okay.
But, I didn't have a brother. Okay. But I would go outside and I would just pretend fish like when I was a kid. And then I would also have my sisters act like they were fish and grab my line and I'd fight them. I'm like, oh yeah. I was 8, dude. Okay. But that practicing casting, at a young age, it really did make a difference. Right. And so people going out and going to the park and casting is really good. And I noticed you were casting intentionally. It looked like in wind, because you knew that when you were going to go to the flats, you were going to get just destroyed by this massive amount of wind. So, I mean, that's a good thing for anglers to go out and do, is just to practice their casting, to be able to throw. I mean, with dry fly fishing, I think you want to be able to throw 30 to 40 feet pretty easy.
Absolutely. And I saw it on Instagram on at Fly Fishing Confidential. They had a thing, and I'm going to misquote it, but essentially it said there's no natural in fly fishing, practice casting. And it's something like,
say that again. There's no what?
There's no natural in fly fishing. No one is a natural in fly fishing.
Oh, gotcha. Okay. Gotcha.
Practice casting.
You're not a good. Yeah.
No. And casting is a very perishable skill, and I do a lot of, when I fish for myself, I do a lot of spey casting. For steelhead, and then I do a lot of nymphing with clients and my family. But if I'm going to go dry fly fishing specifically, like up in Montana, I am going to go practice casting.
Yeah.
And I'm going to work on hitting targets.
Mm-hmm.
You have to do it, especially if it's something you only do once or twice a year before you go on a trip. You should be out there practicing casting. You can't pull the rod out, your 5-weight Winston, put it away for a year, and then a year later pick it up and think that you're going to be just as effective as you were when you put it up. You need to go out there and practice casting a bit. I did it. I practiced casting more for Belize than I've practiced literally anything else in my life. And I'll tell you right now, I was still not as good as I should have been.
Yeah. The flats have a way of humbling you.
I mean, when you get out there and you talk to the host, and he was like, dude, a reasonable question for these guys to ask you is, can you hit a moving target at 80 feet in the wind?
Yeah.
I was like, I can't hit a moving target at 80 feet like with a baseball, dude. Come on. You think I'm going to do that with a crab pattern? Like that's not going to happen.
I might have told you this. I might have shared this already, but yeah, like I was out on in the Bahamas and I was casting my 10 weight because we were starting to look for tarpon a little bit and this one location, but I was just casting it, kind of just practicing, and I was like, man, I feel like my rod and the line, there's something, maybe it's the wrong line or whatever, and I was like, I can only get about 65, maybe 70 feet, with no wind, like perfect conditions. And the guide's like, he's like, oh, let me see it. And he jumps down and goes up, and he threw all 100 feet of fly line in like two. I was like, he's like, no, it's fine. I was like,
yeah, dude, you just want to hate your head and be like, I'm a horrible person.
That's when I was like, I'm a trout indicator guide. Water load.
Absolutely, dude.
Yeah, it's pretty funny. So people should go out and practice their casting. The thing that they can't really practice on grass is the mending, though, and the presentation aspect of that. So that you have to do that on the water.
Yep. Yeah. And that there's only one way to practice mending, and you're correct. It's on the water. But if you can comfortably cast and you're good at laying that fly over, and I think in that practice casting, those practice casting sessions, put a little piece of yarn on there, a piece of yarn similar to the size fly that you're going to fish, and work on getting that to turn over. And
because you want it to fully like turn over, meaning the fly is at the very end. Yeah. Okay.
Yep. And watch your back cast too. I mean, you don't have to do it when you're fishing. I prefer people do it when they're fishing so they know what's going on behind them. But those practice sessions on the grass, watch that back cast so you can see what's going on behind you, because you'll see that, because that front cast you can see. And I've noticed people have a tendency to do it better on the front cast, but on that back cast,
because they can see it. Yeah.
Yep. On the back cast, inevitably they start coming forward too quick before that line is laid out behind them. And then we have wind knots, we have dump casts, poor presentations. So watch that back cast and really concentrate on getting that fly to lay out. And that way, when you do get on the water with a guide, there's not as much to worry about. You're confident in your casting, and that's going to make you a better angler overall. Because then it's just, brush up on your mending, and mending's easy, right? Like once it's explained and you practice it and it clicks for them, the mending part's easy. And then I find myself being like, don't mend so much. We're mending too much.
Yeah. You can actually overmend. That's exactly right. Yeah. I think what you just said is really good though. So for anybody listening, if you want to improve your casting, obviously practice, but then there's no shame in looking over your shoulder. In fact, I tell people, I think you should do that every time. Always look just to make sure, like until you can start to read it, because now I think after you've been casting for a long time, you can actually feel the rod loading, right? Or you can feel it just tug a little bit so timing wise. But until you develop that habit and that muscle memory, looking over your shoulder is the easiest way. It doesn't cost you anything. It prevents yourself from, because what you're saying is essentially you're not throwing your casts in a way that ends up getting all tangled up and you're hooking trees or whatever, which gives you more time for fishing, right? So helping people. The other thing too I was just thinking about is when you're out practicing, it might not be a bad idea to practice casting and leaving it on your back cast.
Absolutely.
Because like with you and my quote unquote rules of the boat are like, hey, if you're in the front of the boat, you're casting off the front. If you're in the back of the boat, you're casting off the back. I don't want no flies near my head. And I also don't want you guys casting where your flies are going to be near each other. So problem is if you're in the front of the boat, you're right-handed, going to the right-hand side is a little bit of a problem if you're not used to leaving it on your backhand, right? So you basically want to teach people to cast like you're casting a left, but then leave it on your right side, so that's another thing I think people can practice. That way, when you get to the boat, or you get into certain situations, because that'll even happen when you're walking, waiting, if there's different trees or things like that. So,
and I think practice casting off your, from your off shoulder too, your non-casting shoulder, getting that laid out. I mean, the more challenging you can make the casting practice and do it properly, the better off you're going to be.
Yeah, that's good.
And I did that in Belize for bonefish. I'm a left-handed caster. I'm casting off to the left side of the boat. Big school of bones. We're casting at 50 feet. And I had to lay it down on my back cast into the wind. And practicing doing that helped me exponentially. It's probably the only reason I was able to catch bonefish for that day. So practice your casting. Practice all different kinds of casts, whether it's a laying it down on the back cast, laying it forward on a regular cast, roll cast. Practice the reach cast, so that line's already mended. Practice it all.
Yeah,
it's going to make you a much more confident angler.
And there's a whole bunch of different types of casts and presentations that folks can look into in relation to dry fly fishing, because stopping your rod, so it actually kind of doesn't fully extend is another cast. There's the I don't know, the S cast or whatever it is, where you're kind of mending in the air. There's all these different things that all the guides in Montana can do really, really well, and elsewhere. So that's all good stuff. So flies, man. I've already kind of hinted at my number one dry fly, but yeah, if you had to pick one dry fly?
I'm gonna go with a size 8 purple chubby.
Whoa, you're going all in.
You didn't see that one coming, did you? Yeah, no, size 8 purple chubby, man. That fly gets hit when the golden stones are hatching, the salmon flies are hatching, the hoppers are out and about. And the coolest part about that is when you're fishing those types of flies and those types of hatches, presentation is second.
Who cares?
Exactly.
Yeah, that's like, I guess that's like the rubber legs of nymphs.
Yeah.
Right.
Yeah,
I mean,
absolutely. Yeah.
Like, I just throw this on there and who cares?
Yeah, I mean, I'm not proud of that by any stretch, but I mean, I'd love to be like, oh yeah, the Mercer's missing link. It's so elegant and wonderful, and I'm like, dude, give me the trashiest fly you have in your box, and I'm going to cast that.
If the squirmy worm was a dry fly, you would probably
fish it. Dude, the bad thing is, like, in my steelhead nymph box, I have squirmy wormies for like bad days. Yeah. Dude, I'll do that. And I
don't understand why. I don't. Is it because it's so good? It's just too easy. Is that I don't get how some people are like,
you're fly fishing, and now we're putting a worm on. I mean, you might as well peg a bead.
Dude, worms are, yes, you're right. You should peg a bead. I'm glad we got back to this. Actually, one of our listeners texted me and asked me what kind of bead was Dax's favorite.
Oh man, I didn't even know we actually had people listening to this. That's cooler,
Well, I didn't say it was. It was like one of two. So
okay,
mom, my mom, and
and like I was the third, I think.
Yeah, but anyway, so chubby. Okay, that's your go-to fly. What are some other flies that you have? I mean, dude,
I like any October caddis type pattern. I mean, I don't know names of them.
Stimulator and things like that.
Yeah, but and if you man, I mean, I'm bad with dry flies just because I don't trout fish for dries a lot, and when I do, it's going to be a foam stone, it's going to be a chubby, it's going to be a sofa pillow. Sofa pillow would probably be another one of my favorites.
Okay.
That's a great fly. I like that fly. Has a elk hair orange, looks like a big stimulator, but it rides a little bit lower in the water. But man, at the beginning of the season, it was a good fly.
Yeah. Okay. You ever use the Fat Albert much?
I don't. I probably should. But
so I don't. Big profile fly, foam, does all the things that you probably want. Slaps the water well. Actually, slaps the water really well because it's so fat.
Yeah, I love it when a fly can slap the water and not spook fish, dude. It just makes my life so much easier.
Yeah. I would imagine that would be pretty fun. I remember going to, I think I was fishing it was the Beaverhead, in Montana, and there's this great guide over there named Cody Benzel or Benzel, something like that, but Benzel, and really, really good guide. And we did a day, a buddy and I, and so I was throwing this big purple chubby, just right out of your playbook, and just smashing it. And I remember there's this one brown. It was this big riffle. I mean, it looked like almost like a big swirl. Just smashed it in there, and big old water. Splashes, the fly hits, and this 20-inch brown literally jumps out of the water and dive bombs the thing. And I was like, yeah, that's pretty cool. I get it. Yeah. I get why people do this.
Oh, yeah. It's awesome.
That's pretty cool. Yeah. So you get to dry fly. So what's the season? What's your dry fly? Can you do it all year? Obviously, your winter is probably non-existent, but
yeah. The big dry fly season. Excuse me. It'd be really cool if I didn't have a fever right now and like this cough and all that stuff. But the trout season opens May 22nd, and we're getting into the salmon fly hatch then. This year was a bit different because the Corps of Engineers released so much water, right? Like it was like May 20th. They went from like 750 CFS to almost 3,000 CFS overnight. So kind of turned the hatch off a little bit, but also extended the season. We have a section of water up here called the Holy Water, and that's between the diversion dam for the hatchery and the main dam. And it's a half-mile section, barbless hooks, fly fishing, catch and release only. And you can go up there and you can get some BWOs going if you hit it right, cloud cover. And that it's actually a decent winter hatch because we have pretty mild winters up here. There's only a few days a year that it gets below freezing. So usually, mid 40s to low 50s during the daytime up here, and get some cloud cover, you get some BWOs coming off, and you can have pretty good success in the Holy Water section. The rest of the river, I've seen BWOs, drakes, PMDs coming off, and the only thing rising to them are 3-4 inch smolts. You'll never get I've never seen a big fish rise to those hatches. So I don't really I don't even carry them in the boat, just because I think it's a lot of effort.
Yeah, for a little payoff. Yeah. That's cool. Awesome. Yeah, we kind of, I think we could probably dry fly for most of the year, except for like October until end of January. It's just such a egg.
Yeah, you like eggs.
Egg. Well, so do the fish, Steve. So when we talk about steelheading here, we don't say we went to go fishing for steelhead. We say we went and caught some steelhead.
You are so full of it.
Yeah. Steelheading's fun. Well, we had such a good season this year. The problem is pretty much, I feel like I have been ruined now, because now I'm going to be expecting 5.
Expecting 5 fish every day.
Exactly. It's like the worst when you get one right away. It's like, oh man, the next 7 hours are going to be so boring.
I know, dude. It's like, the good thing, like when you're steelheading, is you've got like 4 hours before you typically get a fish. And so that just sets the expectation for the day. Like, we're going to work hard. We'll get 1 or 2, and that's great.
Yeah.
But when you land a toad 20 feet from your launch ramp,
it's so depressing. Like, because in my heart of hearts,
yes,
I'm like, I'm happy for you, but it's going to be a long day now.
Yeah. And then having to explain that to him, be like, yeah, that's not going to happen again. That's a bad omen. Like that's like worse than bringing bananas on my boat. Like,
I'm like, you ever heard of the term peak too soon? That's what we just did. Yeah. I had these two guests. I got them a fair amount. They're super cool dudes. And we had 2 days scheduled to steelhead. And our first day, we hook a fish 10 minutes into the float, a good adult, lose it. Like maybe 20 minutes later, hook another one, land it. And then we get a 30-inch fish is the largest fish I got this year. And then we ended up catching, I think, 2 more adults. And then we ended the day off with a brown. So really good day. And the guys are, the next day we're supposed to do the same thing. And they're like, so do you think we might be able to replicate that again?
No.
Or should we go to the lower sack and fish? I'm like, we should totally go to the lower sack. We should just, because tomorrow we're going to get skunked. That's just, yeah. So we went to the lower sack and then just crushed them, trout fishing. But yeah, it's pretty funny because that doesn't always happen. But So those are your flies, chubby, purple, size 4, you say?
Size 8.
Size 8, okay.
Smaller
size
chub.
8. Yeah, smaller chub, okay. And then so what have you been, I know that you're in the middle of salmon flies. I've been pretty much all your trips then lately. What's been the latest water experiences?
All my trips have been 3/4 day salmon fly hatches. And when we first got started, the weather just did not cooperate, and with those high flows, it was rough. We've caught fish every day, but I feel like for the first few days I had to work too hard for trout. It was only a handful of fish a day, where typically you can get close to that double digit number, and we're catching 4 or 5. It definitely has picked up, and we've been catching some dandy fish, man. We've caught some dandies. We caught the first guest I ever had book me through Confluence was actually my first repeat client this last
I saw that. Yeah.
And dude, he lost a steelhead, and before I couldn't even get out, it's a steelhead before that fish was gone, dude. But it was really cool. And then he right after lunch, man, that was right before lunch, right after lunch, we go river left, and I'm like, throw it to the right. We're just gonna hit this little slot here. And dude, he pulled the craziest fish out I've ever seen in my life. This was I thought it was a steelhead, a small steelhead. And then taking the hook out, I saw that it was a cup bow. And this thing was 20 inches long, but it was like 5 inches tall. And I was like, dude, this is a football. Like, it's a legitimate football. One of the coolest fish I've ever seen. So we got pictures of it and swam off strong. And I was also able to get his daughter into her first fish on a fly rod.
Yeah, that's awesome.
And that was
a dry fly too?
That was on a dry fly. And that was, awesome. Dude, I had just thrown on a golden stone variation because her dad he lost a fly. So I pull over, and it's in a spot. It's a real deep salmon hole. Like, we never catch trout in there ever. I've never caught a trout in there. And I pulled over to tie him up. I put on another fly for him. I throw on a golden stone for her. And first thing he does is he whips it back to cast and goes into the brush. So I'm backing the boat up to get it. And then we hear a splash, and we heard be like, I think I got one. And I look over, I'm like, you got one. So dude, that was cool. It was a really awesome. Beautiful coastal cutty.
Cool.
And dude, it was just an awesome day, man.
Yeah, that's great.
We've had a lot of days like that. Yesterday was a hard day. It wasn't supposed to rain, but the weatherman apparently missed what it looks like when it rains class.
Yeah, that's happening a lot.
Yeah, because dude, it opened up on us for a bit, and right in the middle of that, on a purple chub, dude, we got absolutely destroyed by a massive steelhead. Like, that's dude, great. It came out of the water, took the fly on the way up, came completely out of the water, laid out, big belly flop splash, had it on for a bit, and then it just came unbuttoned.
Man, that's awesome.
Yeah, and the client was it was as exciting
to lose the fish, but that's awesome to see.
No, yeah, it was as exciting as it was heartbreaking. Yeah, but no, dude, we're getting into more steelhead on a dry fly this early in the year than I've seen, and I think it's going to be a lot due to the water releases.
Oh, that's cool.
Just moving those fish up,
bringing them up. Yeah. So would those be summer or the spring run fish? Then?
Those will be summer steelhead.
They are, okay. Yeah. So just coming up a little bit. Well, yeah, June. So they're just coming up early, a little bit.
Yeah, they're super early fish. And it's dude, it's been a really sweet bonus to the salmon fly hatch. And dude, we've been pulling out big, 22, 23 inch rainbow trout. So it's been fun, man. Yeah, the water's still high. It's a little sketchy in some places because it's high. I mean, running the jet boats in bigger water is a lot more fun than running a drift boat in big water.
Yeah. But you think you think you're gonna ever go the raft route?
I don't think so. I like the stability of the drift. I really like that. And if it's a spot where, I mean, I don't even know, maybe the Elk River on the coast would be a spot where I'd get a raft, but that'd be, you
don't have any reason to do that.
No. Yeah. And it's only, I say that just because there's one part where you put in at the hatchery that's, if you don't hit it right, you're going to lose your drift boat.
Did I go on that with you?
No, it That was on
I
the
remember
road.
one spot. Oh,
Yeah.
I remember one spot where I was like, I think I filmed you.
Yeah,
Shooting that shoot.
yeah, that's the one where Andrew was like, "Dude, you just pick what truck you want to hit on the way down." I guess I was like, "Yeah, we're hitting the one on the left." That's
Yeah,
what
I
bounced
was
us
like,
into the
oh,
right.
this is awesome. There's like a rebar everywhere.
Yeah, yeah, it's from the old Gold Ray Dam. That
Yeah, okay.
rebar rock.
I do remember that, and I was like, oh, okay.
Yeah, you got to slap that rebar with your paddle for good luck as you go by.
Yeah,
and
yeah, I like it. You did that. You did a good job.
I did. So, but
shot right through there. Well, when are you going to come down and fish down here? Last year, you tried to come down multiple times, and then blizzards would happen, and you got stuck on I-5.
Yeah, I got the last room with the Best Western in Wairika.
Yeah, I remember that.
Yeah, and that sucked too because I was on the phone with you and I was on the phone with my mother-in-law who used to live in Wairika trying to find a back route. And you're like, I just called a deputy friend of mine and he was like, it'll take you 12 hours to go the back way. I was like,
not going to happen. We will not
I'm
be
just
fishing.
going to go home. And then they closed the pass in Oregon coming home. And I was like, dude, I am not spending the night on the freeway.
Yeah, that was crazy. But that happened twice though, right? Didn't we try to fish twice and there was like storms? One time there was another storm that we both knew that wasn't going to happen because it was just too bad. Another time, I think one of us maybe got was having symptoms of COVID or something.
I think, I think that was me because I had I'd had it and been vaccinated, and then one of my coworkers at the time is like COVID positive, and then like I guess I'm a hypochondriac because the next day I started coughing. I was like, I got the Rona again.
That's until you get a negative test, you're like convinced you're gonna die. That's pretty much. Yeah.
And now one of my coworkers at the jet boats just got over COVID and now I'm sick. I'm like, dude, if you gave me the Rona, like I'm gonna push you off the boat.
Yeah, that's crazy. Yeah. Well, our latest things down here been, all indicator fishing for the most part, but doing these really cool trips. I've been doing this float that have kind of curated this and designed this little float to where you get to spend a little time throwing for stripers, do some dry fly fishing and indicator fishing. So it's been pretty fun. The fishing's been really good as of late. So that's been exciting, but I'm pumped. Friday, Kevin K and I, another Confluence guide, are going to go throw some big old streamers that I tied up for some stripers. Nice. Or as I like to call them, fish tacos.
Fish tacos are so good.
Yeah, they are. So cool, man. Well, sounds like a lot of good stuff going on up there. A lot of dry fly fishing. Yep. So I think if people are listening and they've got questions they would like us to talk about on the podcast, they could just give us an idea of what they want us to talk about, and we could fit it in. Right? We need to get some guests on here.
We do. We should probably get messaged.
We should get Andrew Harris, the owner of Confluence, on. I purchased his book. Did you know he wrote a book?
I should, but I don't.
Fired.
Yeah, sorry, Andrew. So
I purchased it. Yeah, on like fly fishing Plumas County. So anyway, it'd be fun to interview him about that book he wrote 35 years ago. Not quite that long ago, but
no, yeah, that'd be a good one. We should get messed on here. In Belize, I fished with another Confluence guide, Andreas Furman.
Oh yeah, Andreas is awesome. Yeah.
So and he's he guides on the side, and he's a social worker for the day job, and good dude, man, heck of an angler.
Yeah,
and
he's a good. I saw him on the Trinity when he loves spay, and I just remember when I saw him, it was like he was the happiest I've ever seen a guy in my life. Yeah, with his client, using a spay rod. I was just like, that's awesome.
Yeah, dude, and he was the guy. Every night we get back to the lodge in Belize, he was the guy that would just walk from the boat to the home water, and we wouldn't see him until dinner. And I think at one point he was like, "Hey, dude, if I don't show up for dinner, will you come get me?" It's like, yeah, I can do that. So, heck of an angler, man.
Yeah, he's like, I'm here for a certain amount of time for a certain thing.
Oh yeah,
I'm gonna do that certain thing.
Yeah, and he worked it. He worked it all 6 days. One of the hardest working anglers I've ever seen.
That's awesome. Yeah, we should get Andreas. I want to get Kevin K on here.
Yeah, we need to get Josh on here.
Yeah, Josh James for sure. There's a whole bunch of Confluence guides we could get in. BK. There's a newer guide on staff, Tom. Tom just he's going to Alaska today to go guide for Kings. Be good to get him on when he gets back. And
he's running the Klamath Basin, right?
Yeah. I think he's doing. No, that's Dylan. So we need to get Dylan. Dylan Woodrum needs to get on here too. I'm actually going to go fish with Dylan. I thinking like 2.5 weeks or so.
Klamath Falls.
Yeah, up in Klamath Falls area, Williamson and
Cool.
Wood. But
be there in an hour and a half. Thanks for the invite. That was really nice of you.
Dylan, Steve is upset. If your wife can't go, he would like to go. Just you need to ask him. You need to say, Dylan, please, Father.
Yeah, I should. Yep.
Anyway, but no, Tom is out of Reading, and he is big spay guy. Also does indicator trips in the lower Sac, and but it'd be cool to have him talk about his king experience. I was kind of telling him I haven't fly fished for kings up in Alaska for, I don't know, it's probably been 8 years now, and it's unbelievable. There's nothing like a king on a fly rod. It is just ridiculous.
Epic, dude.
Yeah, it's super cool. And those fish on the Kasilof or some of the other streams we fish, 25 to 40 pounders, it's epic.
Right on.
So cool. Well, it's been a fun experience. So if people want to check out what we have to offer at Confluence Outfitters, they can go to confluenceoutfitters.com. We're also on Instagram and Facebook. Steve, you are on Instagram. Steve Scow Fly Fishing is your handle. I am NorCal Trout Bum. And well, hopefully we're going to hit the water. And next time we get together, we'll talk more about this thing we do, fly fishing thing.
I'm all about it.
Cool. All right, man. Well, thanks for listening, everybody. We'll talk to you soon.
Thank you.